Okay, so my name is Mark Beck. Here we go. I'm the Vice President of Strategy at Merca. Strategy is a kind of combination of a few things, licensing, user acquisition, some data science, and some kind of in-game optimization. I've been with Merca about a year, and where I've come from previously was Heart of Vegas Product Madness, another social casino company. So I've been around the casino space around 10 years. If you know me, one of the things that I really enjoy is actually gambling. So I think it's really important that whatever industry you're in, it's very important that you actually enjoy the core game experience. So here's some basic stats about Merca. Actually, I might touch on Ron's whale commentary. So casino, in like the whaleness score, it's kind of off the chart. We're searching for these handful of people that pay and generally pay quite a lot. In terms of their ability to move between competition, we find most of our players are quite promiscuous, meaning they will have played a lot of our competitors' games, but they generally will pay in a handful of them only. And their favourites, they're ones that they generally pay the most with. So we actually identified, based on Ron's talk, which was, the social casino space is really heavily elderly female whale driven. And what this means is there's this underserved segment of the market for younger, more male participants. So our top game up here, Scatter Slots, was and still is our biggest title, and really our way of breaking through into the social casino market, which is pretty heavily fixed. There hasn't been a whole lot of new entrants in the last few years. And so what we did is we thought, okay, what are mechanics that would resonate with a core slot player? And then try to make those a little more male-focused and a little younger focused than the traditional slots game. So you can see you've got a map, you're racing your friends, and then each of the levels, you're actually achieving a mission or a quest rather than just playing slots, and then the more you bet, the more you progress. You actually have specific achievements. And what we saw is this was clearly an underserved segment of the market. So it's not just a phenomenon for social casino. I think it's for any mature industry where people are solely focused on one set of demographics or one set of players. Your ability to innovate is really, really important, and this is what will end up making you successful. Our second game, or our second largest game, Infinity Slots, is also what we believe is innovative in terms of the mechanic to progress, but it is your more traditional social casino player than your top game, Scatter Slots. For those who don't know about the industry, people are often like, oh, are people really playing slots online just for fun? I can tell you, I personally play slots online for fun. It's a bit, I think there's a bit of a stigma attached to it, similar to a lot of casual games, but you can see it's a significantly sized industry. I think $4.5 billion, $5 billion in total, and it's dominated by a handful of parties that you can see on the right-hand side. It's large, it's still growing. You can see it started on Facebook, it's transitioned to mobile, but it is a very, very competitive space. So the only way to stand out is to innovate. So this I took was the kind of top 20 or so slot apps. So I took out bingo, I took out poker. And what you can see, it's a bit of a mess, everything's a little bit different, but what you can see is there's certain themes that resonate. So the red, these are people who manufacture slot machines, put them on the floor, and then take that exact same content and put it onto your mobile device to play. So IGT, Aristocrat, Scientific Games, WMS, it's quite obvious the strategy that they're deploying. They're making great slot content for the floor, and now they're moving it to the mobile space. So when you're competing with these people, you're not only competing with a back catalogue of slot titles. So myself, I've been playing more chili for 10, 15 years already. You're competing with hundreds of millions of dollars of investment in designing the best slots for the physical machine. So these are fierce competitors. Your casino IP, so these are the Zyngas of the world, they identify that there's a difference in licensing between the slot floor and the mobile space. So Wizard of Oz is owned by one party on the slot floor and a different party on mobile. So this is leveraging similar pent-up demand for those titles that the manufacturers are producing. You've then got your casino operators, Caesars, MGM, who have a belief that their player base and their user base will be more valuable than just buying users directly. So they've entered the space. And then the green space is the most difficult, which is you're just developing content for the mobile space specifically. One of the things here you'll notice is Slotomania, Caesars, or Caesars not anymore, a few others, House of Fun. These are all owned by one large Vegas slots, is all owned by one large competitor, Playtika, which sold for $4.5 billion, I think, last year. So this is the space. The green is really difficult, but you have to understand that who you're competing with and why. So for us to go head-on with one of these very large companies is very difficult. This is why focusing on a specific subset made sense for us. So this is how we kind of think about our portfolio is, okay, let's design a product for a specific segment rather than just trying to copy what else is going on in the market. So you've got scatter slots, a more advanced player, slightly younger, more male. The graphics are a little bit darker. The achievements are a little bit more specific. This is designed specifically for that player. You can see Infinity Slots is your more traditional casino simulator, which has that older female focused. And then what you've got is our new game here, Slots Era, which is actually very similar to Scatter Slots, except it's targeting your advanced, younger female player. So this is our way of differentiating from the guys who are just producing an application to try to appeal across all of the different subsets of players. And poker, we just launched maybe a month ago. It's a twist on your traditional poker game, so it's definitely worth checking out. This focus of segmenting our users, it not only applies to the game, but it actually also applies to our ads that we're serving, right? So if I'm an Australian older male, I will be targeted with a different creative than a American younger female, right? So we think about this not just in the application, but also in the ad creative, the events that we're running. Everything is specifically designed for this player. So this was Scatter Slots, our kind of quest-based mechanic, achievement-based mechanic. And like any really competitive industry, what we saw is a lot of people replicate similar features inside of the game. So the backer were kind of ideas of that this is replicas of our original concept. And this is something you've just got to deal with in the mobile space. If you have a successful product, you will have replications of it. So there's things you can do to protect yourself in terms of the App Store, in terms of the platforms, etc. But there's really one way of competing, and it's just continuing to focus on your player and the product and just continue to innovate. So okay, the meta game is starting to get replicated. Let's focus on just building the best slot machines possible, as an example. This is a good idea of, instead of just focusing on a specific innovation, is broadening that to everything, and that becomes a lot more difficult to replicate. So you can hear, we've seen these type of graphics. You wouldn't see these type of dark, more gothic graphics in your traditional slot machines. This is quite unique. So then for us, the kind of natural transition was, okay, this is working for slots. Can we make this work for poker? So here's our new poker game. We actually played a physical version of this where someone had to have achievements and quests. But effectively, it's the same concept where instead of just playing poker for fun, you're playing to achieve specific missions. It becomes quite complicated when I'm a level 4 playing, I just need to play 10 hands, versus someone's a level 10 and they need to win with a flush. This is the kind of innovation that we're trying to bring to market. That was really nice and quick. Is there any questions? No?
That was very quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're having a whole 10 minutes more.
Okay.
I mean, I think personally it's a fascinating kind of area because social casino blurs a boundary between different psychologies of game design, I would argue. You tell me, because I'm not a gambler. I totally understand why it's appealing, but I'm one of those guys that doesn't like gambling because I like to be in control. I like running gambling services because house always wins.
Sure.
So that, for me, that comes down to the psychology of the motivator, that where the joy is found. And I think for gambling, and tell me if you think I'm wrong, but there's this moment between the result being in and me understanding if I won or lost. Yeah. And there's kind of an adrenaline rush kind of like response to that. And that doesn't diminish over time. That's something which, if you love that, you really love that, and you want to get that moment again. And casino, with real money, does that because there's something at risk. Why does social casino work when that risk isn't as apparent in like a mobile context? Because I think it does, but I'd love to know what you think is the reason for that.
So I think the first part's 100% true. So the idea of a slot machine is you're gonna lose, right? It's a game that's rigged against your favor. So the sounds, the animations, everything is designed for making you feel happy, even though you are losing ultimately.
Massively stimulating in great ways.
Yeah. I think if you just think that they're only chasing that win, not the entertainment, that's the disconnect. So most social casino companies think people really enjoy this feature, this event. They're actually okay with playing it without money at a much lower cost. I think it's a very common misconception in social casino that you can fake this experience. So a lot of, the scatter slots as a mechanic, there was a lot of failed attempts at trying to innovate in social casinos. So I think even Zynga had a slot machine where there was an endless runner on the top. As a slot player, this is kind of just distracting. This is not enhancing my experience. It's just creating a distraction. So making sure you have a metagame feature that overlaps well with the slot experience is really important. One other, I guess, point of reference is if you read any of the app pages reviews, you'll see that slot players believe the machine is rigged. Like, this machine is rigged, it took my money. This is very, very common. And the answer is, it is rigged. You are going to lose long term. This is how a slot machine works. So a lot of social casino companies think one of the ways I could fake this is by generating a really positive experience for my users when they first enter the funnel. So I install the game and now, wow, I hit a big win. If you give justice to their complaint that this is fake, this is not what the core player is looking for.
No,
so it's a balance.
Because I remember I launched a mobile gambling service in 2006 for 3, and in the UK, and that whole kind of percentage payout, which is part of the fixed odds rules that the UK was running at the time, I think it still does, was a key part of it, and the payout was an absolute essential aspect of the experience, and the feel of that. A lot of the experienced casino guys knew straight away what the payout would be, percentage-wise. And they tended to veer towards sort of 98, 96% payout slots that we had on our service at the time. This is a long time ago, by the way. This is like Java days, so don't look at me for any really useful information. That's what Mark's there for. Is that still the case though? Are they still looking for that kind of like, I'm trying to understand this slot, or is it now the metagame is much more interesting as part of the experience?
One of the most popular slots in America is a game called Buffalo from my former company, and there's different variations of Buffalo depending on where you're playing. So if you play Buffalo on the Las Vegas Strip, you'll have a lower odds than you would on the off-strip properties, as an example. So yes, I mean, the advanced player mechanic is also applied to specific slot designs. So not just return to player, but like volatility, hit rate, what the feature looks like, what the graphics look like. And people are spending an exorbitant amount of time and energy trying to craft a slot machine that works really well. Even the best slot designer in the world would probably have like a 10% hit rate, meaning they'd release 100 games and 10 of them may be successful. And this would be the best. So it's if you knew how to tap that winning feeling every time, you'd be a very wealthy man.
Yeah, I can imagine. And the fact that hopefully we're all getting this is that we look at slots, we think, oh, it's just a slot machine, fine. Actually, that's not the case. It's incredibly complicated to get the nuances. A bit like trying to make the best match 3. It's no longer just making a match 3 anymore. It's actually making sure that we've got every single finesse of every single mechanic element, not just short term, but long term as well. I'm hogging a lot of the questions, so I want to check if there's other questions in the room. I think we've got a question over here with a mic.
Yeah, just a quick question. Very good presentation. So the way you classify different type of developers, so the traditional slot machine manufacturer, they try to port their existing IP to mobile, right? So, but what about in general? Do you think, like when you design a slot machine mobile game, is it targeting the gambler who wants to just like have an alternative, or are you trying to actually grab those who don't want to pay, they're not gambler, but they just want to have the experience. But in general, I guess slot machine doesn't have much of a gameplay, so I just want to understand better.
It's like a common debate. Is it the exact same player that goes to a casino and plays these games, or is it a different subset of the audience? I think for sure, given the fact that the top titles are casino titles, these people are at least familiar with these titles. Whether or not it's 100% overlap, I'm not sure. It's very common for someone to not be able to get to a casino. It's too far, it's not in their state, etc. This is a very common subset, so I'd say for sure there's a subset that knows the games and just can't access it, or they prefer it at home versus in the casino.
I had a similar conversation with Raf, who was a guy who set up Plumbee, who's no longer there, but he said similarly that it's not just the casino guys, but the familiarity with casino was the key for him.
I don't know if I can't go back, but if you think also there's some tension between the casino operator in terms of Caesars and My Vegas, etc., and the manufacturers, because these are actually customer and vendor, right? So they sell that box into that customer. So there is some differing opinions on what the exact overlap is.
So can I just ask one very quick follow-up question? Yeah. So you mentioned about the $4 billion market, right? So is it majority of the players still gamblers, or do you think it's actually there are 50%?
I'd say it's pretty high. I'd say if those people could play for real money at home, they would be playing for real money at home. It's just that they can't.
We had another question here.
I don't need the mic.
Well, we do for the recording, so otherwise I'll have to repeat the question, which is fine, but I might get it wrong.
All right, so I was kind of curious, what's the average LTV that you're seeing with casual gaming? Or not casual gaming, I mean casual casino gaming?
Yeah, we don't give it. It's a niche industry, and your DAUs versus a game like Candy Crush would be significantly smaller. So you imagine it's much smaller user base, but much higher monetization, and that's why it's quite a hot area for advertising, because you're searching for these specific whales in a very niche industry. It means you have to bid very, very high in terms of buy a lot of impressions in a competitive market. So it's high. It's higher than it's actually probably the highest in mobile gaming.
Okay.
We have one last
question. One of the highest, I'd say.
Makes sense.
I thought it was interesting you mentioned about how a slot machine on the strip would have worse odds than one that would be off the strip.
Depends on the specific state and reg. You know what I mean? It's very complicated, but yes, it can be. Yep.
Are you building in any sort of regional differences into apps? Or, broken down by perhaps different types of users might get different odds, or people in different places might get different odds. How's that playing out?
A little bit, not too much. The majority of the market in social casino is US, at least 80%. The other 20-15% is probably Australians. So they're very similar type of player. I think when you start getting to the Asian market, Japan, these are very distinct markets where the content has to be completely separated. We also maintain true random math in the slot machines in terms of we don't adapt it to the user's experience. And for that reason, why I explained that it's a poor user experience if you're actually making it true that it's rigged, you know what I mean, that they can't play because they've won too much. Each spin should be random.
Cool. On that note, Mark, thank you very much. That was great.
Thank you.